This is Willie Jones, with President of Women for Progress, and you've tuned in to another edition of the Working Woman Report. Of course, this is a recorded radio show. We had some technical internet issues this morning, but you know, the thing with women, we always have a plan B and a plan C. So we are recording this program, our first half live, and hopefully for our second part of our program today, we'll have our internet issues resolved and we can go live with Ms. Tiffany Page, who's going to be with us for our second 30 minutes. But thank you so much for tuning in and being part of giving us support for the Working Woman Report, which is programming to highlight the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi and to make sure that we let Mississippians know the impact of the work of women throughout Mississippi. I want to first start by congratulating Mr. and Mrs. Runny Cruz from District 71, who pulled out an awesome win for District 71. We look so much to his leadership and his support of South Jackson and Byram area. Of course, you know, the work does not stop with the race. We must link hands with him and support all of the individuals in District 71 with our time and our efforts and our resources and making sure that we empower the communities that are in District 71. But we are so happy to hear that he has won, and he and his wife and his family together in the entire District 71 community, we wish you so much success, and we look forward to working with businesses and the community leaders throughout District 71. I'm so happy this morning to be sitting again with the Working Woman Report. We have two dynamic women that we're talking to today about the work of women throughout the state of Mississippi. And so I'm excited to introduce as my first guest, Tracy DeVries. Did I say that right? We're Executive Director of the Women's Foundation of Mississippi, and I want to share just a little bit of information about Tracy for those of you who may not be familiar with her work. Tracy DeVries has worked in nonprofit sector since 1999. She previously worked as a fundraiser at Special Olympics International and led the corporate and foundation channels at the national headquarters of the American Red Cross. In addition to her role in developing mutually beneficial corporate alliances during her time at Special Olympics, she also oversaw a federal grant to promote social inclusion in schools across the United States, worked on providing health programs to individuals with intellectual disabilities throughout North America, created a family support network, and focused on organizational development through leadership and board training and the creation of fundraising plans. Tracy's volunteer activities including teaching English as a second language and coaching soccer. She is originally from Northern Virginia, a graduate of Michigan State University, and has lived in Washington, D.C. for most of her professional life. She recently moved to the Jackson area in the fall of 2016, where she lives with her husband Tony and their two rescue dogs, a German Shepherd named Zuri and a Rottweiler named River. And they have two children together. Welcome to the Working Woman Report, Tracy.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here again.
And I think you've been part of the Working Woman Report before, and we had a great dialogue about the work that the foundation is doing. But I want to start by talking a little bit about you. We are so excited when women choose Jackson. You, of course, are not a native of this area, but you chose to be here. When we look at your resume, you could have been empowering communities all over the country, but you chose Jackson, and why?
Well, I think in some ways I would say that Jackson chose me more than the reverse. I got married, and that's why I ended up moving to Mississippi.
Wow. Your husband is Mississippian?
My husband is not a Mississippian, but he has been here since 1999, so more of a Mississippian than I am.
Right.
Yeah. He was here, and when we decided to get married, it just made more sense for me to come here than for him to come to me.
Right.
And so here I am. But I think when I spent a lot of time in Mississippi before he and I got married. I was able to go back and forth. I was working from home, so I had a lot of flexibility in my life to be able to do such things. So I actually got to spend a couple of years getting to know Mississippi before I moved here. And so once I got here, we were able to decide where we wanted to settle down in Jackson, and it's really been great being here.
I find that people, when I'm traveling too, that all over the country, people are intrigued by Mississippi. It's rich history, and it's both controversial history,
Yes.
but mainly because of its rich history. I think we are very unique to the rest of the country. And I think a lot of those who choose Mississippi when they get here, they're very excited about the opportunity, and it's a very unique experience.
Yes.
So thank you for sitting with us today. The Women's Foundation is doing, I think, groundbreaking work with women in the state of Mississippi, and they're empowering women in very unique ways. What do you think are the biggest challenges and obstacles to women's success in the state of Mississippi?
It's a great question, and I think it has more than one answer.
Mm-hmm.
I think the first answer is true for women in Mississippi especially, but true for women in general a lot of the time. And it's sort of that narrative about what women can do and what work is appropriate for women. So when you look at all of the numbers, you know, and in some ways Mississippi has numbers that are worse, not every time, but a lot of times, right? So when you look at the number of women who are serving in elected office, when you look at the number of women who are in the C-suite, in that CEO type of role, when you look at the number of women who are taking leadership roles, all of those things, the percentage just is never high enough, right? And you know, this is something that I think about a lot. I read somewhere once that you have to have, in any group, you have to have at least 33% of that group be like-minded and interested in the same path to be able to get the rest of the group to go with you. And so whenever I look at the numbers of women and where they are and what they're doing and whatnot, you know, we need to get to that 33% in a lot of places in elected office. We need to get there in the C-suite. We need to get there in the non-traditional fields. And I know that's something that you're really interested in.
Right.
And I really am too. I mean, I think that the more women that we have in these professions where it's not usual. I mean, I'm actually guilty of it. So when I moved to Jackson, we bought a house. And we needed to have some electrical work done, as one does when you move, these things happen. So we got a reference from someone or a couple of them and just called and had a company come, and it was actually a woman who came out, and she's a master electrician. And I was surprised.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be, right? I shouldn't be. I know I shouldn't be. And I was surprised and thrilled to see her. And I really felt like I was in such great hands with her too. This is such a silly little thing, but you know, they were hanging a fixture, and she said, "How far exactly do you want that to go?" And I said, "You just do that." I know you know what you're doing, so just
and it was
carry it on.
Because you, as a woman, knew how a woman thinks.
Yes.
Which is very different.
Yes, I knew that it was all going to work out, and I did not have to manage that in any way, and it was wonderful. So I think there's this sort of narrative though, where we all, men and women, we all have to think about a woman's place in the workplace differently. Being a master electrician should not be unusual.
Right.
That's a thing. We should have 33% of women. We should have 50%, given it's actually what, 51 or 52% we should actually be. That's the percentage.
And also I think too, when we talk about these non-traditional jobs, there's such a need there, especially when there is a need to be filled. Of course, my business is transportation and trucking, and I'm talking to some of my, having discussions with some of my female truck drivers. And one of the things, and I'm going to share some of those interviews because it's just been, even I've been fluent and incredible, like you were pleasantly surprised about the electrician. But one of the things that stood out for me when I interviewed one of our female drivers is when she talked about, I said, "Tell me what your day is like." And she talked about dropping off her kids, having to pick up her kids after work, making sure that they had care, sitting down with them at school, so to do their schoolwork. And so she's in trucking. She's having the same issues as a woman, as somebody who's in a nursing field or in teaching or etc. So what I'm having conversations with women about is, and trying to share with them is, women's if you want to call it, and I don't even want to use the word women's work. The work of women is the work of women. Whether we are truck drivers, whether we are electricians, or we are others, we have to just make sure that we're not leaving opportunities out there on the table to empower ourselves. And when and one of the things that we're going to talk about is when we talk about the needs of women and what it takes to move us to the next level, we know that women need a certain amount of income.
Absolutely.
They can't, and nothing wrong with working at McDonald's, there's nothing wrong with working at Target and all those places, those are good job opportunities. But if we're going to move women and children, because women and children, to a next level, we have to provide incomes and opportunities that are going to pay a certain amount of salaries. So absolutely. I want to share with our audience, for those who may not be familiar with your intimate work with Women's Foundation of Mississippi. The Women's Foundation of Mississippi is the only grant-making and advocacy organization in the state entirely dedicated to funding programs that improve the lives of women and girls statewide. Their mission is clear: economic security for women. Women have greater opportunity for upward mobility and economic sustainability when they can plan for pregnancy, earn a degree, or receive relevant job training and pursue a viable career with a living income. Now, Women's Foundation is a few years into switching to this whole process of funding organizations or groups that are already doing the work. What was the catalyst for that transition?
Well, so I mean, the Women's Foundation has historically always funded projects and programs in the best interest of women that are focused on economic security for women. So, but recently we've been really looking at projects and programs that can help women get to that next level with their careers. And one of the reasons we did that is because we commissioned research a couple of years ago, and the title is Women's Access to Quality Jobs in Mississippi, so it's nice and long. But it's on our website if anyone really wants to read all 93 pages. But we were really trying to understand, you know, what is it that is important for women to have in their jobs? We know it's salary, everybody knows that, that's very important. But we also know it's access to health care. And you know, sort of under that for me, and this wasn't part of the research, but under that, I just think it's so important for women to be able to have access to the healthcare that they need and be able to access information that they need so that they can make good decisions for themselves.
Right.
We know that women are the ones making decisions in their households around healthcare. They're the ones who are driving the healthcare access for their children. We know that this is true, and so when women are healthy and can make good decisions for themselves, they have healthy babies, they have healthy kids, we have healthy communities, it's a healthy Mississippi overall. And so that piece is so important to it. Women having access to retirement benefits, women having access to full-time year-round steady employment and paid time off so that they can do things like take their kids to their doctors or take themselves for that matter, all of those things. So, you know, doing that research, it really helps to inform for us the kinds of projects and programs that we want to fund, so that we can really make a difference. You know, so we're interested in having more women have whether it's the skills or the degrees to access those jobs, but also creating more of a dialogue in the business community too around why all of these things are so important and what that return on investment is. So if you're investing in your employees, what's that return on investment for you? How does that make your business more successful when you have employees who are getting access to what they need? And just being able to bring that together. And I think that that's a big piece. The other piece to the question that you asked before about sort of what's stopping women from having their next level of success. It's having access to all of those things and being able to get on that path that leads to the next level and the next level.
And I want to say too, when you use the word access, because I think that needs to be clear to our policymakers and our leaders that are working. Women are not asking for handouts. They're saying, give me access to that, help me be able to access some support to be able to, on my own, elevate myself.
That's right.
And I think when we talk about sustainability, that's what works. And if we look ourselves as society, we can say what we want to. It's not about a handout. We have to, there are things that are happening in our environment that makes it extra challenging for women.
Absolutely.
And that's not something, that's not a statistics that we throw out, that's a reality. And that has been true for a very, very long period of time. Mm-hmm. And I like that we have this, I say this all the time, and I think many women leaders say that. We know when we empower women, we empower communities, and we empower economies, mm-hmm. and we empower, for us, the state of Mississippi.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things that we learned from the research that we did, so whenever we do this, we always have these policy recommendations, and there are several of them, but to me, the one that was most interesting and so clearly something that we can do and should do, mm-hmm. is if we can just cut the pay gap between men and women, mm-hmm. we can cut poverty in Mississippi in half.
Wow.
Just by closing that gap, just by saying that a man who's doing this job, and by the way, the numbers are staggering, the average is that a woman makes 76% of what a man makes. Mm-hmm. But the reality is that what you're really looking at is a white woman makes 22% less. Mm-hmm. A black woman makes 45% less, and a Hispanic woman is at 46% less. So when you really dig into the numbers, right. and you see the intersection between gender and race there, I mean, it's staggering. Right. But just closing the gap,
right.
would make all the difference. And that's just
being fair about work. Pay the same
Absolutely.
For work. That's not something we have to get creative about.
No. Well, yeah. and the other thing to keep in mind is that more than half of the households in Mississippi are headed by a woman, with the woman as a breadwinner, right? So mm-hmm. whether it's a single mom, which is about a third, or it's just a woman who is actually the economic breadwinner in that household, mm-hmm. that's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. So 75% of the kids in Mississippi are living in poverty. Mm-hmm. Like, when you look at those numbers, if you just close the gap, it would make a major difference.
Yeah.
For so many people.
And that's why I'm excited about the work of Women's Foundation of Mississippi, because when I'm looking at and keeping my eye on the work that you all do, that the impact that I'm seeing, and when I say impact, I'm talking about when these solutions and this engagement is really hitting the heart of the matter, as they say. So I'm very, very excited about that and what you all are doing. And look, our 30 minutes will go by fast, so I've got a lot I want to talk about.
Okay.